We move towards the woods. The night is heavy, the shadows and oil slick on our skin. As we draw closer to the woods, the tall black trees, the new seeds that wink at us from the earth, I feel my chest tighten. I brace myself. I can't help it. Images of Jane come to mind. The situation plays itself out in slow motion. Drunk, cheap cider, locking her in the shed, making noises, telling her something was locked in there with her, unable to get it out. I remember the way she hammered against the door, begging us to let her out. We start trying. We can't. Lock's stuck. She's saying it's not funny. It's not a joke. There's something in there with her. She's sure of it. It's getting closer in the dark and we're shouting back that we're trying. And we actually are now. The woods are a different kind of dark. Imposing. Try as we might, we can't help but shake the feeling we're not alone. No birds. I want to say something to Blake. Say something that might make this better, easier, but I'm mute. We pick our way along the path by the light of our torch, and then slowly make our way down a hill, trying to move as quickly as possible, scanning the earth for roots or stones. All we can see is teeth. She's kicking the door now, and it swings open. Jane stumbles out, younger than us by a year or two, and the momentum carries her. She staggers to her right, slips on the edge, falls into the river. Her head catches on the edge of a boat with a brief sharp crunch. Then silence for a moment, the sound of water lapping against the hull, against the shore. We push on. Blake's talking out loud periodically, reassuring herself, reassuring me, saying that we're not far now, that we're getting closer, that she hopes Michael's okay, doesn't know what's got into him. I can hear the slight shake, the tremor in the longer words. She's just as scared as I am. Occasionally I can hear twigs crack in the distance, the sound of dislodged soil. Something's following us, at least shadowing us. Whatever it is, it's keeping its distance, chooses instead to watch us, while following this white circle, panting. Blake goes first to help her, leans over the edge to try and grab a hold of her, but she stumbles, steadies herself against the rear of the boat which starts to drift away. She shouts. Michael and I are too drunk to react for a second and we come over, both grabbing the back of the boat, taller, heaving it towards shore. Blake joins in too, and for a second we think it's okay. Jane comes out of the water, head against the lip of the shore, a cut on her forehead. She's gasping for air, and it happens in slow motion. It's too late. The boat's in the water, there's no friction, not really. Tons of metal and wood that we've just managed to pull. The boat won't stop, slowly glides towards the stone shore. The only thing between the two is Jane's head. We can see streetlights through the trees. Beckford's Road. Blake begins to shout Michael's name, sprinting now, stumbling but steadying herself against the trunk of a tree, running out and onto the grass, and then we can see his car, expensive, black, and Michael doubled over the hood, as if retching. The boat won't stop. Tons move slick over water. Jane's head surfaces, resting her head against the stone for a moment. A wet crunch as the boat makes impact, her teeth like popcorn scattered over the shore. Blood and a clear liquid burst from her nose. I don't remember much else. Remember coming to on the grass, tasting bile and hunched over. Blake with something in her arms, some wet and red mess. Sirens. Michael pacing up and down saying, "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck." The stones at the shore slick with something that's black in the moonlight. White teeth scattered. And Michael, bent over the hood over his car, is retching. Something's coming out of his mouth, hanging there for a moment, and a hand with long and grasping fingers slowly pulling its way out. And then a wrist and a forearm reaching as we can see that Michael's eyes are wide in terror, and he's shaking. And he can't hear us now, we're both shouting his name as loud as we can. Maybe 20 seconds away. He staggers, falls behind his car. We can't see him. There's a wet tear, a sound like stones against a car door. Then as we draw closer to the car we see it. Some shape, white and hunched, all bone and joints, and is running off into the woods. We find Michael glassy-eyed on the other side of the car, dead. His throat popped like a ripe fruit, his jaw in two. He stares up at us, motionless, as if to say, too late. This isn't like when we were teenagers. I don't retch. Blake doesn't cry. We stand there, in silence, steeling ourselves. We can see the paint of his car scratched, 4 long trails dragging from his door to the hood. The CD he was listening to has caught, like the vinyl, and so quiet we can only hear it now. It says, "Lickety-split, lickety-split, lickety-split, lickety-split." Blake brings her sleeves to her eyes, leans forward, takes the bundle of letters and papers from the front seat. She bends down, takes his phone from his pocket. No passcode. She thumbs in 999, calls them, reports an accident, then drops the phone, still on the call, into his lap. We need to go. Now. I try to protest, but she cuts me off. We don't have time to explain. She looks to Michael, his corpse. What would we even say? Try explaining? She gestures to the state of his face. That. And so we move, back through the forest, in a grim and determined silence now, and Blake's saying that we have to get to the library, to read Michael's notes and to hole up there, and see if we can figure out what this is, what's happening. That thing. I raised the point that it might be out there, following us on our trail. It went the other way, Isaac. At least, I hope it did. Cold sweats, chewing my lip now. So much my mouth begins to taste like iron. My hands shaking, even in my pockets. I think of the way rabbits react when picked up, stiff and terrified but helpless. I am a rabbit, I think, caught in the headlights of something I do not understand. Whatever it was has not followed us through the forest. We emerge in town, pick our way through the street silently, find a library, an old building, stacks of books leaning against dust-grey windows, paint peeling on the door. Blake moves her head. Follow me. We hop the wooden fence to the side of it, find some bins, a small stairway that leads to the basement. They never lock it, Blake says. I must look confused because she follows that up with, look, you don't spend your life here without picking up a few tricks. Good point. I think Michael's death hasn't hit either of us yet. Our bodies are running on pure adrenaline. We make our way down the stairs, open the door. It creaks, a staggered, lonely sound. The room stinks of old books, of mothballs, damp wood. Blake shuts the door behind her. Her torch is the only light now, giving our faces a white glow and casting long shadows in the rest of the room. She walks to the corner, a single desk facing the wall. She flicks on a dim lamp. Sit here, starting Michael's notes. I'm going to... She pauses. Head upstairs. A few books I think might be important. Stay quiet. Remember, we're not meant to be here. And with that, she's gone. I'm alone, in a room I realise I did not know the size of, that's completely dark except for the one dim lamp in front of me. I start reading. There are bundles of academic papers, pages and pages of handwritten notes that I assume Michael's photocopies of older books, of nursery rhymes, written in Old English, images of old wood etchings, of witches and beasts with goats' heads and men's bodies round fires, women with horses' legs and hanged men. I don't know where to start, and all I can do is flick through them, trying to absorb them, to see if I can pick up on what Michael and Blake seem to know, this hidden thing that links all of these. I read about a language called gutter, that thieves and tramps speak. It can mean two things at once, that they use it to communicate, that with it you can say things that aren't possible in the tongues we speak. I read an old text from some group in the 1800s called the Next of Kin, at least, a member of the Next of Kin, called M.T. Miller, who suggests that the dead speak a language of their own, that they dream, and that if you could somehow harness these dreams you could... My attention wanes. It makes no sense. The ravings of mad people, a noise behind me, the flicking of a page, as if someone stood behind me in those rows and rows of books watching me, casually, slowly leafing through a book, waiting. My breath grows shallow. I can feel their eyes on me, and the room suddenly feels so huge. Blake? My voice is hoarse and quiet, too scared to commit to normal volume, instead only offering a half whisper. Footsteps, something behind me. I turn around, trying to see what it is, but the lamp only goes so far, and most of the rows and rows of books are completely obscured in shadow. For a moment, like something swimming in the corner of your eye, I think I see a shape. Something pale, humanoid, on all fours. I try to collect myself, tell myself I'm just imagining it. But there it is again. As I feel my heartbeat rise, I can hear it. No voice I recognize. A voice that's somewhere between a child and a man, as if some alien mouth is forming around words not meant for it. We've tasted now that hidden fruit. Trust us, we will free you. Stay where you are, don't go now. Licketysplit can see you. Then before I know it, I'm running towards where I think the stairs are, as fast as I can. Not caring if I slam into something or knock something over, only wanting to be out of here, to be back with Blake, not to be so alone. And I can hear whatever it is running after me, uneven and scratching footfall. I keep running as fast as I can, and the books never end. It's as if there are now thousands of shelves stretching on for so much longer, and the rooms seem to be endless, and I just keep running as it grows darker, barely able to see now, except for in the gaps between shelves. When I come to the end of one just before another starts in that gap, I can see something bounding after me, only separated by rows and rows of books. It's keeping pace with me, taunting me. The room cannot be this big, cannot be this long. I want to turn back to see if the lamp is still there, only a few feet away, but I can't. I have to keep going, not to allow whatever this is to catch up with me, to get me, to find me. And then it's gone from the gaps, and I think for a second I might have lost it, but then I can hear it, and I know it's changed lanes. It's now behind me, grasping for my heels, and I slam into Blake, knocking her books everywhere, the two of us over. Her back hits the wall. I stumble through the doorway and skin my elbow on the carpet, lying there for a moment. What the fuck? She stands up, torch in my face, and I can tell she's angry, but then she sees my face, how real the terror is. I sit up, try to explain in short sentences. I can't help but shake the feeling that it wanted me alone. It's gone now, at least for a while. We walk around the room with the torch. It's tiny. I don't know how I could have run for that long. We check each corner. Empty. Blake sits at a desk, takes out a pen. Hey, get some sleep. She gestures to the carpet. Better than nothing. Sleep takes me almost instantly. I want to stay awake, to keep watch, but my eyelids are so heavy and I wake to Blake shaking me. She meets my eyes, speaking too quickly. I know what it is. She leans back, looks around, as if she can't believe it. Isaac, I know what Licketysplit is. She starts to stack the books on the desk, takes a few pieces of paper and puts them in her pocket. And I know how we stop it. Before the Romans came to this wet spit of rock, before they bought their endless roads and numerals and sweet wines, the land belonged to someone else. Before they called it Britannia or England, it belonged to them. Tribes who roamed and fucked and painted and fought, who sang and moaned on the salt rocks of the coast, who knew the land and its gifts, the deer, the wolves, the small red berries that grew to your shins, the thorns and thistles and wild dogs, who prayed to things that had no name and needed no names, things that moved in the dark, at the edge of the glow of the fire, things that lived in the streams and trees and earth beneath their feet, things that lived in song, that were song. When the Romans came to the town now known as Itch, and made cattle of its people, men's throats slit on hungry earth, the women and children made slaves, the weak and the old thrown into cold water and told to swim. Thought they could banish what the tribes sang to, but the tribes would not stop singing, even in shackles and marched away, marched to the coast into slave ships, and they would not stop singing in between gulps of muddy river water, or when flogged until their skin was raw and wet and ragged. They sang even when their lips bruised, when their throats were so dry it hurt to breathe. They sang into the storms and the sea spray, even when the wind stole their voices and threw them back. The words changed from man to man, from woman to woman. They changed as the world around them changed, but the melody stayed the same. And even once they were driven out, the Romans could not lose the melody. It was stuck in their heads, luring at them from the dark corners of the forests, in the chattering of rodents, the quiet roll of thunder, and the melody knew them. It knew this strange and cruel invasion, and it would not let them forget. They tried to control it, tried to ban the song, but it failed. It was not their song to finish. They found men dead, jaws and throats popped like wineskins, men who had taken the sword to themselves, men who would sing the song to anyone who would listen until they drank themselves to death, men who had been singing the melody on tops of cliffs and then never seen again. This land was not theirs, and they knew it. That's what it is, Isaac, the song, Licketysplit. They're the same. I try and wrap my head around it. Something, a spirit, a fey creature ancient that stayed in the minds of this town, that uses the town and lets the town use it. Something unpredictable, powerful. But the thing we saw, the thing I saw, she cuts me off. It's the song. They're not distinct things, Isaac. That thing can only exist with the song, and the song needs it to exist. But it's the town's conscious. It uses people, works through them. In its own way, it's defending the town. The same way it's defended the town for years. But the murders, the deaths, they didn't do anything. At least, no. Not that we know of, no. I don't think Licketysplit works like that. I don't think it weighs things the same way we do. It feeds when it wants to feed. It protects who it wants to protect. Old pagans believed in spirits and rivers and trees. Well, this is the spirit of song. It falls silent for a while. Blake speaks up. If it's the town's conscious, Isaac, you know what we have to do. I did, but I didn't want to admit it. We have to go to the shed, to where Jean fell. I close my eyes, try to steady myself. And we have to hope it forgives us. There's a pocket of time before we leave, as we brace ourselves. We both know what this means, what it might cost. I think of my breakdown, of waking up in a bed face crusted with dried blood, having chewed a hole in my lip, of the numbness that spread from the centre of my brain to my toes. I thought of Blake, here all these years with no one but her mother, comatose and silent, only a mile or so away from where it happened, left in some small village in England. Before we leave, Blake turns around and puts her arms around me, rests her face against my neck, and I can feel that it's wet with tears. We stand like that for a moment, against the old books, the scattered papers, wet with sweat and rain, clothes dirty, and just breathe. In, out. And she pulls away and we're off. As we make our way through the streets, more and more people start to emerge. Not just old and young now, but everyone. Faces we recognise and faces we don't, treading windows and doorways to peer at us, singing. And now we know why. That they know what happened, have always known, that the song has to happen. This time, there is no other way. Things end as they begin. You can't halt the past or your guilt. Let Licketysplit in. We keep moving. As we draw closer to the river, we notice the crowd change. More and more and more of them. Hundreds now, coming from all angles, from the roads, walking from the woods, all looking at us. Some dressed in torn suits, some in what seems to be sackcloths and leather, some with war paint daubed on their faces, some in tunics and robes, some lurching drunk, some smoking pipes, some naked, some carrying tools and weapons and books, and they're all looking at us singing the same song, the same melody. And between them, occasionally, we see flits of colour, of white, a creature all bone and joints on all fours, scurrying between their legs, over their shoulders, peering from between their teeth, from the darkness of their throats. Something that thrives on the song they all sing, that needs it, that is it. And as we step foot on the grass and can see the shed where we used to tie up the boat, the singing cuts, goes silent. We move across the grass, wet with dew, hand in hand, and it plays out in front of us again, in agonising detail. We see the four of us drinking, Jane not noticing the faces when she turns her back, hear the stories we tell about what hides in the shed on the shore, what horrid and monstrous things live there after dark. And we see her walk in, on a dare, desperate to prove herself to be our friend. We can do nothing but watch as we lock it behind her, as we hear her scream, pound on the door to be let out. I wanted to turn away, wanted to pretend this never happened, but I've no choice. The fall, the sound of her forehead against the boat, the panic, desperately trying to reach her, the boat gliding in so heavy, the sound of her skull fracturing, her teeth breaking, the top of her spine failing. I can't take it, can't handle watching it again, knowing I'm powerless to stop it, and so I run forward to the edge of the river, leaning over, trying to push these apparitions away, to help her myself, and I can hear Blake calling, and I'm unsure whether it's her ghost or her. I lean over the small gap between the boat and the shore, where the blood is on an oil slick on the surface of the water. I try and grab Jane, desperate to pull her out, but it's not Jane. What grabs my hand from the water is bony and all joints and teeth and leering at me. Licketysplit. They have my wrist now, tugging me, pulling me harder, and I'm trying to scramble back, but I can't. Two hands now on my wrist, climbing up my arm, gripping me so tight my fingers are going numb and slow, and I can hear the melody now coming from underwater. And I can see what Licketysplit wants. Me, lungs filled, eyes glazed over. It tugs, sinking below the surface, and I feel myself come with it, losing my grip, my centre of gravity shifting, and then I'm falling in, unable to stop myself. All I can see in the churning water is Licketysplit's mouth and teeth and eyes fixed on me, and there's a moment's stillness underwater. It is silent. I do not yet need to breathe, and I can see nothing. I am alone. There in the darkness, I see it all play out before me, around me. I'm in those ancient fires dancing at the edge, singing the same song that my ancestors sung, joining hands, leaping over hot embers. I'm with the centurions, sick and freezing in this new wet land, the melody stuck in our heads, trying not to sing it, eyeing the swords, the height of the cliffs. I'm the river, in the woods, so many places, so many whens, and the people change but the song stays the same. This melody that's just as much part of this land as the earth, as the roots or the valleys. I'm generation after generation in each. I'm all their secrets, their worries, their private guilts and hopes, their loves, their songs, their regrets and dreams, and I'm Jane's dad, silent and numb with grief, anger like a wound. I'm Jane's mother, who can't take it anymore, who stops eating, who refuses to drink, who lets go and fades. I'm Blake, younger, with Jane in her lap, her face bloody and unrecognisable, and I'm singing Jane a song, stroking her hair despite it all, trying to keep her conscious until the ambulance comes, until her parents come. I'm Michael, pacing up and down, my heart hammering my ribs, guilt so intense it's like a coal under my skin, my mouth dry, hot tears in my face, but I don't know whose. And for the briefest moment, I'm Jane herself, terrified, desperate to make friends, to impress us somehow, for us to love her like she loves us, to have us dote on her the way she dotes on us. And I'm her terror as she stumbles out, the cold shock of the water, the sensation of a skull fracturing. Licketysplit wants me to know all of this and more, wants me to see my place in song, wants me to understand that it is not my song, I am just a part of it. That the song has been going on for so much longer than I have, and will continue for so much longer after. I am just a small part of it, and that this part of the song that's so horrid and so pained is partially mine, and that no one else can own that for me. I don't know how long I have been underwater. I do not know much who I am anymore. I open my mouth to breathe. You've come so far, reached the end, gone as far as you can go. Ancient songs and fresh new guilts. Licketysplit knows. Licketysplit knows. Licketysplit knows. I come to in bed. A familiar sensation, my chin, my throat coated with dried blood. I've been chewing my lips, staring at the ceiling. I think I'm alone. I think it started again. I've been comatose, forgotten the exact events after impact, lost it again, covered in blood and mind broken, and I realise I have no idea how I got out of the water. That Blake may have come in after me, may have hurt herself, that the town may have got to her, or Licketysplit, and the feeling of not knowing makes me so powerless, makes me realise that anything could have happened, that I am alone again, and I let it happen as it did all those years ago, that Licketysplit got what it wanted, has always wanted, and you're awake. Blake comes through the door, hair down, holding a mug. Been out for a while. Whatever it was, it's finished with us. The questions I want to ask must register in my face because she nods, takes a seat next to me, takes my hand in hers. It's done now. Over. A pause. Birds outside, the wind in the leaves. I'm here though. The morning sun filters through clouds. She squeezes my hand. I'm here.